Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone anywhere above or in between. This is Virginia, and welcome to my channel. I'm really happy that you could come back and join me for my last, what I believe will be my last Stranger Things build. And I am ending it on a high note. A very high note in my opinion, because I am leaving it on a Steve Harrington note. This house was by far the most fun of the entire Stranger Things builds that I've done, and there are a few reasons why it was so much fun for me. The first is that there aren't actually many scenes in Steve's house in the show. Like, what little we do see is just like the pool area, the little like sunroom just off the pool, the entryway, and Steve's room. So you don't really get to see anything else in the house. So I was really able to be creative in this build and do a lot of research into, you know, like late 70s, 80s kind of decor, really get into that, you know, mid-century modern kind of vibe, which I'm a huge fan of, but I'll get into that a little bit later when we get into the actual furnishing of this house. So the second reason that I really enjoyed this build is that it's more striking than a lot of the other houses. So like obviously I was building houses based on real people's homes, and a lot of people live in very normal homes. Not a lot of people live in super dynamic structures, and the building that they use as the facade for Steve's house is really very cool looking. I'll try and throw a picture in here at some point so you can kind of see what I was working off of. But it's really neat. It's a really cool, very classic mid-century style home. And it's pretty big. And, you know, like as I was designing this house, basically, you know, at least the decor of this house and the feel of the house, I kind of had to imagine what Steve's, like, family was like. And like tried to get a feel on that, so that was pretty fun too. I got to be very creative in this build, and I haven't really been able to do that a lot since I'm just doing a lot of recreations. So that was really cool. And then lastly, it's most fun because Steve is 100% the best character in Stranger Things. I know, a lot of people are gonna be like, fight me, IRL, like, because people are very passionate about their favorite characters in this show. But I am 100% a Steve stan. And believe you me, I will do my best to justify that throughout this build. So speaking of the build, this is in the largest empty lot in Brindleton Bay. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's the largest lot that doesn't actually have a home already. And this build, it's under 200,000, but it's definitely more expensive than the other builds that I've done because it's just bigger. And there's a lot more design elements in this. It's less cluttered, less like kid-centric, definitely more, I don't know, clean cut. Not that Steve is clean cut, but I feel like he has a clean cut family. It is a 3-bedroom technically, but I turned one of the bedrooms into an office because I don't know if Steve has siblings. I don't imagine that he does. We don't hear anything about them if he does, so I don't know. Maybe he has a sister. I could see him having like a younger sister, like a little Holly situation with the Wheelers. I don't know. But anyway, so I just turned the third bedroom into an office, but you can, if you download this home, you can obviously turn that into another bedroom, and then it does have a fully finished basement. Well, fully finished. It has a really big basement. So you could turn one of those into a bedroom too, one of the spaces down there into a bedroom too. So one thing I did want to note, I am jumping around a lot in this video because this took me so long to build. I know I say that every video, but this one specifically took me a really, really, really long time. There's a lot of terrain manipulation that you can see me doing all the time. And there's, you know, like there's that kind of split level thing happening with the pool area, that deck. So I really had to fight with that deck a lot to get it all to work and look good. But I think it turned out pretty well in the end. Obviously, we don't have rounded pools, and Steve's house does have the really nice organic rounded pool that were really popular in like the 70s and the 80s. I think they probably are still reasonably popular. I don't know, I'm not a pool person. I'm not a water person. Truth be told, I really am not. Like, I'm a land mammal. I'm just not meant to be in the water. So, I don't know what type of pools are popular because I will never own a pool. So yeah, anyway, back to the build. Again, cutting out things here and there. I do put in some of the landscaping, but not all of it. You'll see that I do jump ahead. And there are pictures of this house. Again, I will put up some pictures so you can see of the house as it stands today. You know, like people who actually live in this house. So, you know, the landscaping is all predetermined. This is not my design. The outside is entirely based on the actual structure. I do cut out the majority of the floor plan here, but I do keep in me creating the kind of loft area. So the loft area, when you see the scene where like Nancy's gonna go upstairs and take a shower and all that stuff, you get a chance to see that it's almost like this little walkway connecting the two upstairs parts. So that's what I'm working on here. And it is a split level home in the front. It's got that little overhang, so I do have to go in and replace the floor in that section so it's not just open to the elements. So that's pretty much all I left in of the floor plan because it did take me a long time to figure out. And again, we don't actually have the floor plan of this house. I kind of had to make it up. So I did. I know roughly where Steve's room is based on like the window placement in the show. So that's kind of how I determined where his room was. And I knew that it was to the left. So like when they come in the front door, they go up the stairs and then they go to the left, go to Steve's room. So like I kind of just had to figure it out from there. Oh my gosh, when we get to the dining room, I'm obsessed. I love the dining room so much. I don't know why. There's just something really classic about it, but classic in that dated way, if that makes sense. It's a classic dated dining room. So when I'm working on Steve's room, again, is one of the only ones that we actually get to see. So the placement of everything in the room is based off of what I know and what I could see in the show itself. So I think it goes without saying that there are going to be spoilers in this voiceover. So in this build, there are going to be spoilers, so I apologize to anyone who has not seen the entirety of the show. You know, season 3 has been out for a little while now, so get to it. Get to getting. Watch the show. If you haven't watched the show, I don't know why you're watching this. Maybe because you like me. And I just want you to know that the feeling is mutual. I like you too. Anyway. So yeah, in season 1, we get to see it when him and Nancy go into the bedroom. And, you know, consummate their love. Ugh. I just grossed myself out by saying that. Anyway, you get to see a little bit of his bedroom. And his wallpaper is like, plaid almost. It's like a checkered, but it's white with like blue lines creating the checkered pattern. And I almost did like the gingham style checkered pattern, but it made it look like a kitchen. Like that just, to me, looks like a cute country kitchen. And it did not work. So I went ahead and I stuck with the color of blue, but I went with this striped pattern. You know, I was like, close enough for government work. Like, let's not freak out too much about it. So I did it very sports themed, obviously, because Steve is a sporty guy. You know, he was supposed to be kind of your typical 80s jock character. yeah, so I just stuck with that when it came to decorating his room. And I didn't want it to be too cluttered again, just because Steve's a little older. He has fancier parents and whatnot. So I wanted, yeah, I wanted to stick with that feeling. So this little entryway, again, this is one of the only other things that we do get to see of Steve's house. So I wanted to make sure that I got those little details correct. So we get to see it with Barb there. With the kitchen, I did cut out putting the cabinets and everything in because it just, you know, again, it took me a while, and you've all seen people putting cabinets in, like, let's be real. I do leave in me fighting with this island in the middle of the kitchen because it can be a pain in the butt sometimes to try and get an island to match up, because you know when you're building the counters and you can choose for it to be automatic, where the little gears, so when you click, when you're putting in the counters and you click on the counter itself, you have the gears to the left. You can click on that so you can manually change the type of counter, or you can have it do it itself. Well, if you are building a like square island like that, I find that life is easier if you do it to where it like auto completes basically, and it does it itself. The only problem is that, you know, I pull it away so that I can get these a little more centered in there, and then it doesn't want to fit back together, and it's just a nightmare. It's all just a nightmare, really, is what I'm getting down to. And again, when you saw me like kind of pulling out in the corner to get that like paper towel roll and like the bread box to fit a little bit better, because it was on the automatic setting, it like turned all of the pieces I pulled out into corner pieces. I was like, thanks for that, game. That was actually really helpful. Only not. I decided that, like, Steve, he mentions his family briefly, like his dad's gonna freak out on him because he was drinking beer at the party. Remember when Nancy's talking to him about how she can't find Barb, and then Nancy gets really mad and she's like, you're really worried about how your dad's gonna react when Barb's missing, you know? And like that made me like think a little bit about Steve and his relationship to his dad. So I imagined that his dad would be kind of like some type of power businessman, you know, typical 80s. He's probably got one of those big cell phones like Zach Morris had in Saved by the Bell. And, you know, he's always on the go. He might drive some kind of convertible. I don't know. And like his mom, I don't think would be a stay-at-home mom. I think she would be some kind, maybe she's like an interior designer. She does something. She obviously is a busy lady. So I don't think that Steve sees his parents as often as, say, the other characters in Stranger Things would see their parents. And I feel like, you know, they're not touchy-feely parents, you know. They want Steve to do well, of course, and they support him, you know. I don't think that they're mean, necessarily. I just don't think that they're as nurturing as some of the other parents in the show are. Definitely not a Joyce Byers. Definitely, I don't know if Steve's mom would go into the Upside Down to save him. Let's just say that. I would hope so. But anyway, so that's kind of the feel I wanted it. You know, I wanted it to be really fashionable and contemporary. I wanted it to be the type of home that, yes, it may not be fashionable in 10 years, but that's okay, because you'll just redo your whole house. You know, like people who actually buy clothes based on season. Like, I've never done that because, I don't know, I find that quite wasteful. And, like, it makes me think that Captain Planet is gonna, like, come fight me. So, like, I don't believe in just keeping clothes for a season because, I don't know. I just don't believe that. I don't believe in that. It's awful. But anyway, so that's kind of the people that I imagined living here. They're very, they're wealthy, but they're not, like, super rich, but they're, like, very comfortable, and they're very, like, hip. They're hip parents, because Steve is a hip, cool cat. So the sunroom that is connected to the pool out there, this is, again, another scene that we do see, but it's very briefly. It's right when they get inside from falling in the pool, when Jonathan's all, like, creeping outside. So I tried to make sure that I got at least the furniture placement in this correct. Alright, so, why is Steve Harrington the best character in Stranger Things? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I will, in fact, answer that. He is the best because of the following reasons. His character has the most dynamic character growth. Steve was never meant to be a staple in the show, but the Duffer Brothers, who wrote Stranger Things, just loved Joe Keery, and they loved the way that he played Steve and like him as a person and him as an actor and the way that he like interacted with the other kids, and you know, they were like, wait, this guy's actually pretty rad. So they revamped the character of Steve completely, and where his character was going. So instead of him being like this typical 80s jock, kind of bad boy type that was just like bad news for Nancy, and basically just being the antithesis to Jonathan Byers, he becomes like this layered, funny, sympathetic character. He's like this great, he has this great growth throughout even like the first season. That when I first watched the show, I remember at the very end, of course, everyone remembers when they, you know, when Nancy and Jonathan are baiting the Demogorgon, and he just shows up out of the blue, and you're like, oh no, Steve. And I thought Steve was gonna die, and I got really sad because I actually felt bad for Steve. He doesn't even know what's going on. He has no idea about the Upside Down. He has no idea about creatures coming out of walls. He doesn't know anything. All he knows is that he feels bad because he was mean to Nancy. And he's just like, all right, I'm in. And he picks up that baseball bat and he does a number on him. You know, can you imagine? I don't think I would be able to do that. Like, just fight some supernatural creature that I don't even know why I'm fighting it? Well, obviously he's fighting it because it wants to kill them. But you know what I mean. So that's one reason why Steve is the best, his character growth. Another reason is he's like the most maternal person of the show. You know, everyone see the memes and the jokes about how he's mom, and he is mom. He is Mom Steve, and Mom Steve is a beautiful person. He becomes the unofficial babysitter of all of the younger boys, and I love him and Dustin. I love how they become like legitimate like besties. And it's real, it's adorable, and you can tell that, you know, eventually that Steve's not just, you know, pandering to this kid. He's not just, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? He's not just in it for kicks. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Sometimes I forget words. Like, sometimes I'll be sitting there and I can't remember, like, the word table. I'll be like, you know, the thing you put things on. You know, like, you eat bowls off of it. And it's just the word table. Like, it'll happen every so often, and that's pretty embarrassing because I am a writer. So not remembering words can be really difficult. I actually, you know what? I think those play into one another because I'm a writer, so I'm like very aware of my word choice, and I'm very aware of like sentence dynamics and like the ebb and flow of sentences and word choice. So I think I may pay attention a little too much of, you know, to the words that I choose. So that's probably why I have a tendency to get tongue-tied on very simplistic words that don't really matter. I don't know where that rant came from. Okay. Anyway. So, yes, Steve is maternal and beautiful. And then another reason, his hair. Can we just talk about that for a minute? His hair is like the best hair of all hair that has ever been hair. Right. End of story. Let's see. I love that so far, at the end of season 3, Steve ends up, and he still doesn't have a girlfriend. And I know that the series isn't totally over, but I loved that the writers still didn't give Steve his, like, true love. Because Steve is a proud, independent man who don't need a woman. Isn't that right, Steve? You can be happy. You can find happiness with your friends, and that is all you need. Love will come later. You concentrate on you, Steve. You go and you get your hair did, and you get a manicure, you get a massage, you know, you get some ice cream with your bestie Dustin and your new bestie Robin, who, by the way, who doesn't love her? I'm in love with her, 100%. Not even, I don't even feel bad. I know the internet is in love with her, but I'm just right there with them. Totally on board. New girlfriend. Anyway, Steve is proud. He's a proud, independent man who don't need no woman. And I love that. I think that they should stick with that. I do hope that he ends up being, you know, he's happy in the end. But they're also young, so he doesn't need to find his Princess Charming to be happy at this point in his life, you know? Come on. They're in high school. Or middle school, depending. And then I think probably one of the most important reasons that I really, like, fell in love with Steve as a character is that he learns from his mistakes. Steve, he's forgiving, he's understanding. He's not your typical 80s alpha jock. He's really not. He's kind of aimless in season 3. And I love that. It's so relatable. And you see him kind of clinging to like his star, you know, hot guy in school past in the beginning of season 3. But then like that quickly dissolves. And you see him coming to terms with the fact that like he doesn't really know where his life's going. He doesn't really know what he's supposed to be doing. And that's a really, really, really relatable place to be in. For anybody who has made it past high school, or even for some people that are in high school, or before. We can be aimless at any point in our life. But particularly people who have made it past school, you know, if you've graduated from high school or college or wherever you're going, and you're like, I still don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. That is a really terrifying concept that seeing a character portrayed, you know, really realistically that way in a TV show is great. Because let me tell you about the existential crises that I have had about where my life is going. You know, and I'm like, I'm just going to make videos about The Sims and ignore it. And here we are. But no, that's why I love Steve, and I think that he continues to grow, and he continues to be fun and entertaining and relatable, and his hair is majestic, and I love the fact that he was dressed like a sailor for the majority of like, the entire season. Like, how great is that? Who doesn't want to be in love with a man that's dressed like a sailor? Yeah, so that's really why I love Steve. He is most precious boy, he is most gentle and sweet boy, and I cannot wait to see where the writers go with him, because obviously he's a fan favorite, so Steve's not going anywhere. And I love that in each season, he gets more attention, and like in this season specifically, you know, in the first season, he was basically just a side character to Jonathan and Nancy's story. And then that kind of continued into season 2. But then towards the end of season 2, he got to stand on his own 2 feet and be kind of a side character and a supporting character to like Dustin and Lucas and like that whole situation. And then in season 3, he gets his own story. So it's like he's getting more and more and more important. And I think it's great because other than his relationship with Nancy, he doesn't really have anything to do with the story. You know, he's not one of these he's not part of these families that are somehow inherently tied to the Upside Down. Thanks, Will, I guess. 11, technically. Doesn't matter. But anyway, yeah, he's not, like, he doesn't have family ties in it. But now he has other types of ties. Deep love ties. And not that, like, mushy-gushy girlfriend love, but that, like, bro love. And I mean that, you know, in regards to Dustin and, you know, even to Nancy. He still cares about Nancy. He doesn't want his girl to get hurt. So anyway, hashtag Steve. Steve for life. So as you can see, I've got the basement going here. I didn't want this to be a recreation of like the Wheelers' basement, so I didn't want it to be like this uber, like kid-centric zone. I wanted it to basically be a place, whether you had this or you had a friend that had this, I think we've all seen houses that have that basement that's like a rumpus room. You know, it's just kind of where you go. You're not fancy down there. And that's where you can go and play games. You know, you can be a little bit louder. You can play with your model train sets. I don't know who in the house is into model trains, but I'm going to pretend it's Steve because why not? Why wouldn't he be into model trains? Yeah, so that's basically the feeling of the basement. And there's really no purpose to it other than, you know, you can see it from the outside. So I just had to make it up as I went. Yeah, and, you know, with all of the different levels and splitting in this house, it was really easy for me to kind of lose track of, like, which rooms were enclosed and which ones were partial rooms. So when, like, you shift to, you know, cover the entire wall in your wallpaper, sometimes if you don't have a perfectly enclosed room, or, like, the floor somehow ended up outside where the walls are, you know, we've all been there when we're building in The Sims. But yeah, if, you know, it starts to do that, it's really easy to accidentally paint the outside of your house. That's where I was going with that. Alright, so we are actually coming up to the end of the build. There are a couple little details I do here and there, specifically with the landscaping. But yeah, this is basically it. I hope that you enjoyed Steve's house. Again, Steve is most precious boy. Best character. And I hope that you agree. And if you don't, you know, let me know who you think is the best character. Yeah. And yeah, like and subscribe. I hope that you'll stay tuned. I am going to be jumping in doing another historic build next. So not a build from a show, but a build where a famous person lived. It's actually an extremely famous person this time. And I'm really excited about it because it's a very dynamic and iconic home. And it's not as large as I thought it would be. I've already started working on it a little bit, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys. It's very colorful, and you'll all know it, and hopefully love it, and be able to download it, and maybe have some historic gameplay if that's your thing. And if not, I hope you just enjoy looking at pictures of it, because it's pretty cool. Yeah. So again, like and subscribe if you want more historic builds, or if you want to see me recreate any of the homes or apartments or anything from famous TV shows or movies or books even, or if there's a historic figure you want the house of. Let me know, and I would be more than happy to do it. Thank you for stopping by and checking out my build. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Love you, bye! Bye!